Now the Lord had said to Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. Genesis 12, verses 1 to 4. Now, we see a story here of a man that God looks at and says, I want to bless you. And it's very clear in verse 1 that God says, Get out of your country, leave your kindred, leave your father's house, leave everybody in your family behind, and go to a new place that I will show you. Does this sound familiar? Has God ever spoken to you and said, it's time, leave that place that you've been suffering for so long? You've been here too long. Even if you're having fun in this place, but it's time for me to bless you. It's time for me to take you to a new level. It's time for you to enjoy the purpose for which you were called. That was Abraham's case. But what did Abraham do? He took Lot with him. God said, leave your family, leave your kindred. Abraham took Lot with him. Now, when Abraham had taken Lot with him, they traveled and they got to a land. The Bible says in Genesis 13, in verse 5, starting from verse 5, and Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks and herds and tents, and the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was strife between the herdsmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abraham had to tell Lot, you know what, brother? Let there be no strife between me and you, and between your headsmen and my headsmen. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate yourself. And Lot chose the fine, beautiful part of the land. If Abraham, in the first place, had obeyed God's command, there would not have been strife between Lot's herdsmen and Abraham's herdsmen, because God provided for Abraham. Wherever Abraham was going to go, provision was made for him. That was it. Provision was made for him. Sometimes in life, when we do not obey, actually all the time, when you partially obey God, have you ever noticed there is strife? Sometimes you say, oh God, I know you want me to leave my job and start this ministry full time, but I will work part time. I can take night shifts. Come on, God, I'm not going to preach at night. I can take night shifts. No. Full obedience is full obedience. Partial obedience to God is no obedience to God. You can either choose to fully obey God, or you can choose to deal with strife. Now let's go on. This is a very interesting story. When we look at verse 14 of Genesis 13, the Bible says, and the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward, for all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. and I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Note something very important in verse 14. We cannot afford to miss this. And the Lord said to Abraham, after that Lot was separated from him. The moment Lot separated from Abraham was the moment there was room for God to reveal his plans for Abraham, to fulfill his promise for Abraham. You cannot afford to string along people that God tells you to let go of. Some of you spend time in strife with your family, in strife with co-workers, in strife with this person and that person and that person. And sometimes God's just saying, you know what? It's time for me to cause there to be a stop in this relationship. If we look at further down in Genesis, where God said Abraham should give up his son, the only son that was supposed to be his heir, his true heir, God said, come sacrifice him. Oh, Abraham did not hesitate. He did not take Sarah with him. He did not tell Sarah about it. I know if I was Sarah, I would be mad. I would be like, no, no, you cannot kill my son. It took me this long to give birth to this child. So with all of this said, what am I trying to say? When God says let go, let go. When you hold on to things you think are an important piece to your life, you miss out on what's truly important, God's plan, God's purpose. Sometimes you might not have the full picture. You might not. Abraham may have never seen the land God was talking about, but the moment Lot separated from Abraham, the Lord spoke. Has God spoken to you about something? And are you holding on to things that God has said, let go of? Are you crying and saying, God, you told me about this. You said this about my life. I received this prophecy. I was so sure. What is going on? Let go and let God. Because the moment you learn to let go is the moment you truly start believing in God's plan for your life. You might say, oh God, it might be your career. You say, God, I really want to be a doctor. And God says, no, I want you to be a nurse. And you're like, God, but no, I really, really want to be a doctor, Doctors make the big buck. And God says, no, I want you to be a nurse. You never, ever know God's plan. It could be that if you become a doctor, you might get involved in some kind of issue that would cost you big time your career. You could perform surgery and do something wrong. Someone sees you and it could cost you everything. And it could be that God says, I know my daughter or I know my son. If he or she is a nurse, this would be averted. I know what the enemy is planning. And this is what I want my son and daughter to do to avert the plan of the enemy. But you say, oh God, I know better than I know me better than my maker. Do you ever find yourself saying that sometimes, like, God, I got this? No, you don't. You don't. No one, truly no one can know you better than your maker. He's the potter and we are the clay. Submit to God fully, wholeheartedly. Hold nothing back. I love the song. I surrender all to you. That is total surrender. That is like, God, I let go of my will. I let go of myself. I let go of my emotions. I died to self. And I fully let you to take control, absolute control of my life. Would you believe God? Would you believe God's promises for you today? Remember, let go and let God. God bless you and thank you for watching.